Okay, good day everyone. So, I am at Cyrille Grumo, and for today, we are going to tackle all about three different topics. Okay, so the first is the affect, senses, and feelings. Second one is the body, and the last is music as space. Okay, so let us start with the affect, senses, and feelings. Okay, so blogging is an act of writing, photography, and other media that is self-published online. Bloggers are those people who make blogs. As part of blogging, you need to make your own account updated at all times. And with that action, many people believe that blogging is very harmful or dangerous, not only for the blogger, but also for the people who is included in their blogs, since anyone can view it and be updated on what is happening on someone's life without their permission. Okay, so in Iran, the year 2009 was hailed as the Twitter revolution because the US preoccupation with Twitter updates were widely heated as the next phase of social media. One feature of Twitter is that we can easily find tweets no matter how old it is, with the use of hashtags or number sign. Twitter, like other social media apps, can send and receive message instantly. Okay, so moving on to Body by Balse and Tarisa. Okay, so in colonial documents of different people from the past, including Columbus and Magellan, they believe that the savage breasts of women are signs of great conquest. Okay, so the bare brown bosoms of indigenous women, or Filipinas to be exact, were the markers of savagery or act of cruelty or violence, colonial desire or the desire to colonialize, and a justification for imperial rule. So Europeans and Americans created an archive of different images of the non-Western and other those whose inferiority was marked by female nakedness. Okay, so Columbus himself, who fetishized the savage breast of indigenous women, was convinced. He was convinced to believe that the world is not round but rather pear-shaped, and was tapped by a protuberance like woman's nipple. Okay, so the next thing we are going to discuss is all about the musica space. Okay, so to be part of globalization or the improvement, the Philippines must take on various transformations such as the innovations on post-colonial and feminist perspective. And in order to achieve that, the fantasy production created a framework for us to easily understand and get the nationalist and post-colonial capitalist logics that is said that shapes the action of the Philippines as a nation. Okay, so there is a person named Tadlar. Okay, so Tadlar proved that the consequences of dominant Philippine imaginations through examining different phenomena that characterizes the contemporary Philippine, including Filipinos who work overseas, or what we call the OFWs.
So now I am going to discuss what is time and technology. So actually this is just a continuation of the discussion of Mr. Grumo. So let's first tackle the time by Jonathan Crary. So according to Jonathan Crary, 24/7, late capitalism and the end of sleep is a short, sharp polemic against the dehumanizing conditions of neoliberalism. So the non-stop marketplace and the concomitant demands for constant productivity and attentiveness. So Crary want to convey that sleep is where we can rest and reassure that we have enough time to stop the process of neoliberalism and take a nap. So Crary, a professor of art history and a distinguished cultural theorist, reflects on the way that this condition are shaping notion of temporarily intensifying management and surveillance of individual subjectivities, yes, and undercutting the possibility for a decent and political expression. So 24/7 is a compelling effort to historicize the always on character of our contemporary world. So when we say 24/7, we are literally active. So in 24/7, Crary adds an analysis of the shifts in attentions that brought about in the mid 20th century, particularly relating to the post-war consumptions and televisions, while mainly focusing on the period of 1990 to the present. This periodization is really essential as it highlights the concurrence of the political reorientation of the post-Cold War period. So, the financialization of the global capitalism, which it calls it as a mutation of capitalism and the expansion of the public internet and the other network technologies that propose to remake ourselves in its relationship to the world. So actually, Crary notes that the late 1990s, the vertically integrated corporation that control these technologies are expressly competing for the eyeballs of the consumer, the new attention economy of the 21st century. So Crary begins and ends 24/7 by arguing that sleep is our last refuge from the affront of neoliberalism and it amours of stimulated means we have to adequate sleep to abide neoliberalism because for Crary, sleep is a morus of stimulated needs, or it is really important to help a nap. So, some capitalism said that sleep is uncompromising interruption of the tip of time, yet, if we think from it, how people would be able to be active and attentive if they have lack of sleep, right? Actually, this is a captivating argument and a rousing call for all the workers in the world that we need to take a nap. But although sleep appears in the book's titles, it is not really the subject of Mr. Crary. Rather, it is used to point to other human temporalities that were first transformed by capitalism, and then Crary argues that obliterated by late capitalism and neoliberalism. So, Crary draws on Marx's grantees to define that capitalism as a reordering of time, a series of ever more elaborate alignments of life temporalities with the market needs. So, Crary proposes that we reclaim sleep as a site of unregulated desire. So, a mood of resistance to the rational calculation of the market. So, a state in which we might imagine that the other barbarism or the post-human and in which history can take on the other forms than reified nightmares of catastrophe. So, going to sleep according to Crary, is one will arise anew the next day, or we become refreshed if we have enough sleep, right? So as the wave of 24/7 gets harder and harder to escape, sleep becomes as good as place as any to kickstart the opposition. So workers of the world, according to Crary, she want us to go to bed. So that is the opposes of Mr. Jonathan Crary. Okay, now let's proceed to another topic, which is technology. It is by Rafael Vicente. So the cell phone and the crowd, messianic politics in the contemporary Philippines. So this essay explores the role of the cell phones and the practice of texting within the context of the civilian backup that overthrew President Joseph Estrada in January of 2000, are popularly known as the People Power 2. So this has been focuses in particular on a set of political fantasies among the Filipino middle class, so including their belief in the power of communication technologies to transmit messages at a distance and their ability to possess that power. So that is cell phone. So in the same vein, they had faith in their ability to master the relationship to the masses of people with whom they regularly shared Manila's crowded street. So, utilizing the power of crowds to speak to the states. So, communication, this perspective held the messianic promise of refashioning the heterogeneous crowd into a people addressing and addressed by the promise of justice. So, but as we shall see, such telecommunicative notions were predicated on the putative voicelessness of the masses. So, for once heard, the masses called attention to the fragility of Burgu, claims to shape the sending and the reception of the messages about the proper practice of politics and the nation side. So that is the rule of cell phone in the Philippines. Thank you.
The present education system clearly curtails the development of a genuine nationalist consciousness among the youth and students. It continues to shape the thinking and consciousness of students towards an orientation which reflects the country's long history of foreign colonization and exploitation. Instead of achieving sovereignty in our political life, economy, and culture, education is used as a tool for perpetuating a slave mentally and a social system that protect the interest of U.S. imperialism, even if this result in the country's economic perdition and involvement in meaningless wars. The violent and exploitative character of the current world order is masked by the rhetoric of neoliberal globalization, which is peddled as the solution to all the problems of the world. In addition to this, the neoliberal educational system promotes a selfish and individualist ideology that weakens the feelings of a shared nationalist interest. It stamps in the student's mind the notion that education is only for their own self-interest, that it is mainly a tool for a social mobility in a globalized world. It is these two tendencies, the colonial consciousness and individualist ideology, that immensely weakens the formation of a genuine nationalist consciousness among our youth and students. In fact, any artifact of popular culture has a shelf life. It is only famous for the current fad, even though there is always media and genre revealing it. But there is no shortage of a new trends, and with the adoptions of the new, the commodities of popular culture are also marked by obsolescence and obsolescence. Our personality can be identified not only by our chosen friends, but also by popular cultural commodities. This patronage is generational, creating conscious and unconscious wells of collectivization. This takes generation to generation Y, different from the low-waist gang of youth rebellion of the 1960s, or the generation of Biakan and rectified the 80 and 90. If you erase commodities and economies of popular culture, spreading also the state itself. You study and most likely you suffer and you buy into this ethos for the promise of possibility, not what is expected to happen, but like investment, finance, and gambling, you reduce the risk factor for possibility to happen. That is what is expected to happen. Instead, there is a specific vocational requirement, the Western use of the English language that can be learned because of class background, homes that have taught the language to raising children, debating teams and speech clubs, or watching English cartoons, cable channel to rise to middle class status. Therefore, not only formal education is the passport to social mobility, Even soaking in popular culture is also part of setting the promise of possibility. This is the new kind of intellectual capital in the immediate present national era.